Hi, this is Lori Geisler, and you're listening to Mike Delivers with Mike Biseglia. And if you think Mike's a great host, you should try having him for a brother-in-law. Also, if you can hear Minnie Mouse in the background, that's my 2-year-old daughter and Mike's niece Sadie, who actually share the same taste in music. Minnie Mouse aside, I think.
Inside, Mike delivers from his wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. Here's your host, Mike Biseglia.
That's right, this is Mike Delivers, episode number 119. And I'm your host, Mike Biseglia. And I'm coming to you from my wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. Today I'm inside my house in my office/bedroom. Although, I wanted to give a shout out to the Sakura Japan in East Orange, New Jersey. One of my favorite pickups from the week, and I have to tell you now I am itching and craving to have Sakura, which is a spot that I would have all the time when I was in high school back in the Garden State Plaza Mall. I loved their chicken teriyaki with a little rice and vegetables, one of my favorite go-to all-time food court meals. The Sakura Japan is in East Orange, and I have to be honest, I really thought about stealing food. But of course, I did not. That's because I've done 1,644 deliveries, and I have a 99% satisfaction rating, and I have never and will never steal food from anybody. You can find more of the Mike Delivers podcast on my Patreon page, Mike Delivers, patreon.com, or go to the app and type in Patreon via the phone. There you can get bonus content. You get more stories from the road, food delivery stories. My wife and I have extra reviews. You can get food reviews that are on video. Also the blindfold taste test that we love doing. And then at the end of each and every month, we have a battle between a chain and a local spot with the foods that we tried that month. And that's all on patreon.com, Mike Delivers. And of course, you can find out how I crashed my wife's 2007 Toyota RAV4 in the, ironically, doing a delivery that was for my wife, not for me as an Uber Eats driver, but all of that is there on the Patreon page. Theprosclub.com, I've referenced that a little bit. It's a website that I co-created with Anthony Pierno as we help develop podcasts. If you would like to do your own podcast, we can help you out with that. Email me, MikeDeliversPod@gmail.com, and I can go through all of the protocols and procedures that we have in place where you can be part of the Pros Club, create your own podcast, and be a podcaster, whatever you want to talk about. And I reference this not only if it's for you as an individual who wants to do something on a, like me, you want to do a podcast but being an Uber Eats driver. Let's say you work for a business and you are a dentist and you want to give tips about dental hygiene. You could do that as well. So it doesn't always have to be a personal podcast. It could be a business podcast, which I think would be really cool. So if you're interested in that and you want to get one developed, feel free to reach out to me. I can hook you up. And that's all part of the Pros Club, theprosclub.com. Other great podcasts on the Pros Club, Bad Weather Fans, Outside the Box, of course, Mike Delivers, as we continue to grow the brand that is theprosclub.com. I'm going to have some stories from the road coming up in a matter of moments. Just me sharing the stories today, old school style. Next week, interview with Gus Frerotte. I'm excited for this interview. He is a former NFL quarterback. He's got his own podcast, Huddle Up with Gus. That's great. And also, he's from Pittsburgh. He lives in Pittsburgh area. So I know I have a lot of really great Pittsburgh listeners to this podcast. So I'm excited to talk to you. You'll get to hear my conversation with him. We talk about Pittsburgh foods. We talk about his time on the road as an NFL player. So I think that'll be really cool. But again, that drops next week. That'll be episode 121. Something that I was worried about coming into this and doing this more on a regular basis, this Uber Eats, as I quit CPS and I'm doing a little more rides here and there, was if I would get sick of doing the deliveries. That was a genuine fear of mine, being on the road more, doing more drop-offs, getting sick of it. And I have to say, it has not happened yet. Now, it's only been a couple of weeks, so to be fair, it hasn't been like a year or anything like that. But I'm still genuinely into it, and I like doing it. And as I've said before, It's a relaxer for me. Now, it was a little more stressful this past week because I had a goal that I had to do. This is one of the first times I had like a serious goal with Uber Eats. So let me explain all of this, take you behind the scenes, and talk about Uber Eats goals. What are your goals growing up with Uber Eats? So they give you these situations where if you get a certain amount of deliveries, they give you bonus money. And you sign up for them before the week starts. But the problem is if you don't hit that goal, you get no money. So the lower goal that you go for, easier it is to hit. Higher goal, more difficult. I went with the second tier goal, so the second hardest. And it was 70 deliveries. And you have to do this amount of deliveries starting Monday at 4 a.m. and ending at Friday at 4 a.m. So you basically have the whole week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't think many people are probably doing Monday morning, but there are a bunch of deliveries like Tuesday night, late night. It does happen. Well, I guess it could be because it'd be Sunday into Monday. That's not fair. So there are late night deliveries that happen like at that time. But that would be really early, Sunday into Monday. Anyway, point is, it's about 4 days of work. And I had to do 70 deliveries. And I did it, and it was a fun challenge, and you got an extra like $136 for doing it, which was great because that money adds up. And then for me, it was great because I didn't have to work this weekend, which was nice. But what was fascinating about this is I'm trying to crack the code on Uber is in the last couple of weeks, they've done the shift I talked about where you get the money, you get to see what the order is beforehand, which I've seen. And then a couple weeks later, the total number went down for the minimum. And I got thinking, like, why would anybody in their right mind take a delivery that's going to pay you $2.50 and take 26 minutes? It would take 21 minutes. Why would anybody do that? They're going to wait for an order that's got a good tip involved, that's got good money involved, and one that's going to help them out long term and get more money, right? Why would you take the lower end? So then I was thinking they give you these incentives where they say, hey, if you get 70 trips, you get X amount of more money. So that's the incentive to get people to take the lower end trips, is because they know that they can reach their goal faster. So this all kind of plays a part in how Uber Eats is trying to help the people that aren't giving good tips actually get their food picked up. So, because I was thinking beforehand, like if you didn't tip, why would a driver ever take that order? So there's two ways that Uber Eats tricks drivers into picking up the orders. Number one is they give you goals and incentivize that you have to get a certain amount of trips. So that way, even if it's a shitty payout, you're going to take it because it's a lower amount of time that you're on the road. Number two I'm noticing is they do these double orders. So I'll pick up 2 orders from Burger King and it'll say like a good payout on it. But what ends up happening is they're lumping the good payout with the bad payout, putting it together so you take it, you have no idea which one's the bad one. And that's a good way to trick to get the food picked up, which I find all of this fascinating because Uber Eats has to scam people in figuring out how to get them. And they're doing this other weird thing too, Uber Eats. If you're somebody that's ordering the food, you have options now where you can have your food take a little bit longer, but you don't pay as much. So this app is continuing to evolve and change, and there's continuous different knowledge and things I'm learning on the road from doing this as I try to crack the code. I'm not just interested, I guess, too, in like making money for myself, which is number one goal doing the Uber Eats from a pure work standpoint, not of course stories from the road. But I'm also just kind of curious to crack, like, what's going on with Uber. I think it's fascinating to learn how people are having their food picked up, if this algorithm is working, some people getting screwed. I mean, I picked up an order from Cuban Pete's in Montclair and went in one direction all the way to Newark, New Jersey, and then went all the way to Patterson, New Jersey, which is basically going back to Montclair, and then another 20 minutes. So that food for this said person was sitting in my car for 45 minutes, just sitting there. I guess that's just the new way Uber Eats treating everybody. And that's just the way, I guess if you were to sign up and say, yeah, it could take longer, you save money, the food sits in my car for an hour, Uber Eats gets their 2 drivers, and everybody is happy. I beg Uber to get me a guest. I'm not saying I've asked them to beg. I'm begging them in my own mind out loud right now. I think it would be fascinating for me personally to talk to an Uber Eats person that's behind the scenes. And I think the listener, you guys, would be fascinated because I'm assuming most people that listen to this use Uber Eats to get food. I think we could learn a lot from all of this. So I'd love to get more information on that. If anybody knows an Uber Eats employee, not like me, but somebody that works for corporate, send them my way, man. I'd love to get more information. as Uber Eats continues to change and I continue to try to crack this code to help this podcast and help you guys, the consumer. I am the Uber Eats Columbo driver. That's my new nickname here on the Mike Delivers podcast. Okay, enough about me venting about what Uber is doing to take money, steal money, not give me enough money, not make it easy for you guys, overcharging the customer. Let's get to stories from the road. I've talked about this a lot, and it really does bother me. When you go to a restaurant and the food's not ready, and they tell you a certain amount of time that it will be. Oh, yeah, it's going to be 3 minutes. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Just be honest with me and tell me how long the food's going to take. Because if it's going to take 15 to 20 minutes, I'll cancel the order and move on. There will be another Uber Eats driver that gets here within plenty of time. But there's the tendency by restaurants that they have to lie and undershoot the amount of time it's going to take it. 3 minutes. And now that's the new thing. Like, you don't want to say 5 minutes because then that's obviously a lie. So you make up numbers. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes. Whatever the case may be. So that frustrates me with employees that work at a restaurant. Now, here's the part where I'm kind of on the fence. If this is, I should be angry about this, or you know what, maybe I should just bite my lip and deal with it. Went to a restaurant and picked up the food, and at this restaurant, they have their kids really just working the main desk and working the front. So they're doing everything. And the little girl tells me it's going to be 3 minutes. So I'm like, you know what? This girl's probably 11, 12, 13 years old. I don't know. She's a kid. Obviously, she's doing a great job running the storefront, which is impressive enough. But if she's going to tell me 3 minutes, it's probably going to be 3 minutes. It ends up being somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. So I know she lied to me. She played the role of saying it's going to be 3 minutes because that's just the typical standard answer you want to give to the Uber Eats driver. Should I be upset at her for lying to me? Should I be more sympathetic and understanding that she is a kid? I probably shouldn't be that upset. Or should I be upset at her parents for teaching her that the 3 minute lie works with Uber Eats drivers? Now, she is an employee there. So as much of a benefit of the doubt I want to say, oh, you're a young kid. You are working there. So at some point, it's like, you know what? You're on payroll. You're on staff. You got to do the job your right way. So it just got me really mad. I didn't want to yell at a kid because that would be bad. And I just held it in and I was upset and I didn't want to say, oh, you lied to me. But I'm trying to figure out, okay, and you can respond to me via social media. Mike Delivers Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. There's no app called etc. I didn't need to say that. Should I have been more sympathetic knowing that was a kid telling me it was a 3 minutes? Or at that point, you're an employee, you work at this restaurant, this was taught from the parents down, you're there, the 3 minute lie is no good. Man, that pisses me off when you lie to me about how long it's going to take the food. I could have been off for another, here I go again, I'm getting ramped up, I'm getting amped up, I'm getting angry. Just don't lie to your Uber Eats driver. That's all I ask. Had a late night pickup at a Chipotle in West Orange, New Jersey. Got to the Chipotle, and I noticed that the doors were locked. Could not get into the restaurant. Tried to call the restaurant. Went to a number that didn't even work. Of course it did not. So I went to the side door of the Chipotle where I could get somebody's attention that was still in the restaurant cleaning up, and I saw a bag just laying on top of there. So I'm like, oh, that must be the food I'm getting. Good thing. Let me just knock, let this person know. I know this is going to be kind of scary. I was a little hesitant about it because I'm like, I'm going to scare the living shit out of this person because I know they're not expecting someone to be coming to pick something up, but at the same time, they're probably waiting for this last order, so hopefully they're not too scared. So I start banging on the side door. Can't get her attention, of course. Do it again. Finally get this person's attention. I'm like, hey, this is Mike with Uber Eats. I'm picking up for so-and-so. She goes, no, we have no more orders. I go, yeah, okay. Looking at the phone, it says to be here. Let's just say the name is Sean. Sean's food, it says it's ready. She goes, nope, we threw Sean's food out. I go, you threw it out? You go, yep, we had to throw it out. Okay. So I think in being the nice guy that I am on Uber Eats, I could have just ended the order, not even done it, and just moved on. But I had the messaging system open because I was on the track for the order. So I could message this person. So I messaged Sean, and I'm like, hey, dude. I didn't say, hey, dude. Hey, Sean, just want you to let you know I got to Chipotle. They're closed, and they threw out your food. They say they don't have anything. Just want you to know so you can cancel your order, get your money back, and hopefully, speed up the process for you to get something from somewhere else, and you can eat. It's late at night. I know you're hungry, Sean. You're a hungry man. He then proceeds to text me back like, no, this is not acceptable. Go in there and get me something else. I was like, Sean, the door is locked. They're not letting people in. I can't go in there to give you another order. I'm sorry. Like, I wanted you to know this so you could have a better situation moving forward. I know this kind of sucks. Again, starts getting mad at me like, you're at the restaurant. You need to bring something back. At this point, I just ended the conversation. I was like, Sean, I get it. I understand. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you. There is nothing I can do. Good luck. And then I ended the order. I went above and beyond to be the person that at least messaged back to that guy or started the conversation and said, you're not going to get your food. The audacity, the anger to be mad at me as somebody that couldn't get his order. What else do you want me to do? I'm not breaking and entering into Chipotle and be like, all right, this is your Uber Eats driver. I'm coming in here. We need to make sure we get this burrito done for Sean. I don't care if I'm breaking the law. This is what needs to be done for Sean. He needs his chicken. He needs his rice. He needs his beans. He's a hungry man. I'm taking care of Sean. You can't stop me. No, I'm going to decline the app and get the fuck out of town. All right, this story from the road comes from my good friend Jose Arellano from Long Island. Of course, if you ever want to share stories with me from the road and you're an Uber Eats DoorDash driver, I'm happy to put them on this podcast. Email me, MikeDeliversPod@gmail.com. But here's Jose Arellano and one of his stories from the road.
Just a quick story from the road. This is Jose from Long Island. I went into a Jamba Juice to pick up something for a Michelle. So I go up to the front and I say, hey, you have an order for Michelle? And she goes to the back and she says, oh, I don't have anything for a Michelle. I have a Michael. And I said, well, no, it's Michelle. And she goes to the back and she said, no, just a Michael. That's all I have. And I'm like, well, the order's for 3 purely orange drinks. And then she said, yeah, I have them here for Michael. And then I'm looking at it and like, yeah, that's it. That's Michelle. So then I guess she understood, and then she gave me the drinks, and I didn't want to sound like an ass and say, oh, well, the correct way to spell Michael is this way and Michelle is that way. But I just took the drinks and carried on.
Now, I kind of completely understand this from a couple of standpoints. One, my name is Michael, so I get this slashed all the time. Sometimes I see that the names look a little bit similar, so I understand that. And I respect you, Jose, for not putting up a stink. You don't want to insult the person that's at the restaurant. You know it's a good idea to just keep your distance in that sense of starting something up. You're probably going to be doing other orders and pickups from this said place. You don't want to piss them off, so I totally get that. But to piggyback on your story, it was kind of weird. This past week, I had a pickup from a Burger King, and the person's name on the app was Natasha. It was a double order, so there was Natasha and let's say Rachel. And Rachel, she picked up and was good. Natasha, she's like, no, we don't have a Natasha here. There's no Natasha. I'm like, yeah, I can't. Should I decline it? Should I end this order? I understand if you don't have it. I mean, there's definitely glitches in the app. Like, I get it. There could be something wrong. I don't need to explain it to you. She goes, let me take a look at it one more time. She goes, oh, Natasha. Yeah, we have Natasha. Why didn't you say that? I was like, why didn't you say excuse me. I couldn't believe it. Like, I had told the woman, Natasha, we looked over it for a couple of minutes and it just didn't click in our head with the name, and then it did. So to play off the point from Jose, I think when you're in this position as the Uber Eats pickup driver, unless something's done to you that's just beyond over the edge, you can't get upset at incompetence when you're going somewhere at the restaurant. Like, if they just suck at their job and they made that mistake, you just have to roll with it and you just have to go with the punches. So Natasha, Michelle, Natasha, Jose, you did the right thing. You're a veteran. You're an Uber Eats driver expert. And you know what you're fucking doing. Picked up an order and took it to a house. Normal order, normal vibe. Everything was good. Get to the house, and I noticed that it is a duplex. Of course, on the order and on the instructions, it doesn't say which one it is. So, is it apartment 1? Is it apartment number 2? And of course, the Uber Eats app decides to be an asshole. So when I try to call the person, it does not work. So I look at the doorbells and I look at the names. And the guy's name, let's say, was Daniel Jones. And I see on the apartment, it says for their mail, next to mailbox 1, D. Jones. So I'm like, okay, Daniel Jones has to be on the first floor. Let me ring that doorbell. So I ring the doorbell and the person answers it and they're like, hello, who is this? I was like, oh, this is Mike with Uber Eats. And I didn't know how to use the doorbell kind of ringing system. So when I say doorbell, it was like a buzzer where you could push it in and you could talk to the person and leave a note. And of course, I couldn't figure this thing out. Like, was I holding it in too long? Was I not holding it enough? Do you speak as you hold it in? Do you hold it and then talk to the person? Couldn't get it fucking right. And this person that I rang was not D. Jones. It was the other person. But I couldn't communicate this to the guy. So he starts yelling at me, purely pissed off. And right at this time, the other person comes down and opens the door and says, oh, well, you're here for my neighbor. So they let me know and I go to the correct door. And the guy opens the window, who was not the right person, and proceeds to yell at me, hey, asshole, figure out how to use your phone. Figure out how to use the app. At least buzz it in right. Hey, asshole, know what you're doing. I was like, and again, at this point, as I mentioned from the previous story, you can't fight with people. You have to just respond. You're right. I'm sorry about that. I hit the wrong one. I apologize. I used that incorrectly. I didn't know what I was doing. All right, asshole, you fucking ring that thing? You don't know what you're doing? I'm up here. Don't you know what you're fucking doing? I mean, there were a lot of F words. I mean, F word this, F word that, F and that. I mean, it was all over the effing place. And again, dropped off the food for the other guy. He's still yelling at me, get in the car and get the fuck out of there. And it's just so funny to me, like, how angry somebody could get over something like that. Like, if somebody rang the wrong doorbell, I think I'd be a little annoyed, but I don't think I'd get to the point where I was abusive to the delivery driver who went to the wrong place. So if you listen to this podcast, were you angry? Were you upset? Was there something else going on in your life? Or are you just not a nice person to Uber Eats drivers and kind of a jerk? Final story from the road. Dropped off some pliables for a kid, a teenager. And he was in his house, and the instructions were just leave it at the front door. And as I'm walking up the driveway, I look up, and this must have been his mom. She was changing. She had everything out in the open, and the blinds and window were open. And her and I locked eyes and looked at each other. And I looked down, and then 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Looked back up. She was still staring at me. Didn't put the blinds down. Didn't shut the window. Didn't move out of the way. I gotta be honest. It was difficult to not look twice. I had to look twice. That was the first time I dropped off a pliable and saw a naked lady. I'm sorry, people. I had to look twice. Those are stories from the road here on episode 119. Episode 120 drops on Thursday when my wife and I try the veggie sandwich from Five Guys as we continue Healthy Foods from Bad From You Places month on the Mike Delivers podcast. Don't forget also, dropping Tuesday, a week from today, my convo with Gus Farrat, any NFL fan, and if you're from Pittsburgh and the food scene, I think you're really going to enjoy that episode that's coming out in a week. Having so much fun doing this Mike Delivers podcast and having so much fun being an Uber Eats driver. Not sick of it. I thought maybe that would happen, but so far so good, people. Not sick of doing that quite just yet. Thank you to me for putting this podcast together. We'll have some guests coming up in the next one, as I talked about, but continuing the love, continuing the fun. No real stinky foods this week, which is remarkable. A lot of good smelling foods, a lot of good smelling stuff. But we'll see. I'll tell you what the stinky foods are. Diners, chicken primavera, chicken parmigiana, diner style. Always stinky. Always stinky. This has been the Mike Delivers podcast, episode 119. The music you hear is from A Beautiful Noise. They are the soundtrack. They are the heart. They are the brain of this pod. And it would not be the same without them. We'll see you next time. We'll see you Thursday for a little veggie love from Five Guys. All part of episode 120. If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast. To all of the queens who are fighting alone, baby, you're not dancing on your own. Can you live without me? You wanna, but you can't, nah. Think it's funny, but honey, can't run this show on your own. I can feel my body shake, there's only so much I can take. I'll show you how a real queen behaves. Oh, No damsel in distress don't need to save me. Once I start breathing fire, you can't tame me. And you might think I'm weak without a sword, but if I had one bigger, then it'd be yours. If all of the kings had the queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast. If all of the queens who are fighting alone, baby, you're not dancing on your own. That was for you, Sadie.